going to introduce you to Tony Bacigalupo, a good friend of mine with Open Coworking, and he is going to go over the history of coworking.
Okay, we good? Slavic, how we doing? We good? Awesome. Hey everybody.
Hey.
Hey, can we make some noise for Ashley and the whole team that put this together? Is this amazing? They did such a great job. This is my detonator. Great. Cool. So before we get anywhere further along, just to give you a little background, so my name is Tony Bacigalupo. How many people here have never been to a coworking conference before? Raise your hand. Wow, that's almost all of you. Wow, welcome. How many of you have been to a coworking conference before? Okay, great, awesome, very good. Well, so welcome to all of you guys. I'm really excited to have so many new faces here and a mix of folks who I've seen before here at coworking spaces, which is great. This is a really, really exciting thing, and I'm so happy for those of you where it's your first time. It's really a great opportunity. Okay, here's a random question. How many people here feel like they're one of the only people in their town who actually understands what coworking's about, and they have to explain it to everybody in their town? And it's kind of, you got it, it's okay, you can raise all the way up, I can see it. Awesome, great, you're not the only one here. Actually, everyone here was probably at some point the only one in their town. And so you've got an amazing group of people here who understand what you understood. And we can have some really great conversations with that. Okay. Yeah, okay, great. Here it is. Okay, cool. So my name is Tony Bacigalupo. You can go to tonybacigalupo.com where you'll find all the stuff that I do, and you can download a PDF of this presentation. In case there's anything you missed. I also just recently joined Open Coworking, which is a nonprofit that advocates for the coworking movement and maintains all of the resources that you might be using if you've ever heard of the Coworking Wiki or the Coworking Google Group. We'll talk about those. Anyway, we're making a big push, and we're going to talk more about that later. And I'm on Twitter, Tony Be Good. And let's see. Before I go any further, I got one more really important little set of questions for you. How many people here think that coworking is about a little more than a slightly better way to rent office space? Thank you, Alex, for raising your hand. That's great. Hi, Alex. How many people think that coworking is about something more than renting office space? How many people think coworking is about something that maybe can be really important to our neighborhoods and to our societies and to the future of work? Okay, awesome, thank goodness. We're gonna have a good conference. Because look, we're gonna talk about a lot of things in the next couple of days, and let's talk about the business side. Let's talk about whatever it is that we have to do on the business side to take care of, maintaining our spaces and what color our furniture is and all that stuff. But let's make sure that we take some time in this conference to talk about what's possible, because this is something that's more than just about renting office space, and I want us to have those conversations because it's such a unique chance that we have here. Okay, so I was asked to talk about the history of coworking, which I'm going to start doing in a moment. And when I was asked to do that, my initial reaction was, I don't know, that's tough. Talking about the history of something's really hard. You're inevitably going to be wrong. Which is pretty much true whenever you try to tell the history of something, which is why it's presented from the perspective of me. I'm going to give you my perspective on it. And when I decided to try to approach this, I figured that I was going to try to do it from three perspectives. From the big history, which is to say really far back, recent history, the last 10 years or so, and then a future history. And so we'll start with big history. Angel, I've got your Lego characters ready. So there you go. Okay, big history. So coworking started 10 years ago, but what's the context of it? Well, throughout history, we as human beings have had this kind of pattern where we have some structures, we break apart from those structures, we kind of form nomadic communities, right? We kind of go out and search for new resources, whatever it is, and then we come back together and find ways to support each other again. This is how we build society. This is how we've built the systems that we have today. We're an interdependent species. And so in the larger context of things, we have always been people who have gotten together and then for whatever reason broken apart and then found ways to come back together again, because we're not meant to be on our own. And so we always find ways to gather with intention and mutual self-interest. And so in that way, coworking is actually quite old. And what's happening now is, again, the same pattern we've seen for a long time. There's traditional full-time employment, hierarchies, and we're leaving those hierarchies. We're working from home, we're working for ourselves, we're driving Uber cars, whatever we're doing, right? And then we're becoming scattered. Now we all work for ourselves, we're all individual nodes out there. The problem is that we don't work very well totally on our own, so we need to come back together and we start to reform, and we have these new networked interdependent systems. So instead of all being part of a hierarchy, now we are looking for ourselves, but as part of interdependent communities. This is where coworking comes in, right? Because coworking brings these people together in our communities. So coworking, again, natural, emergent, organic, hormone-free, and it's a natural phenomenon that's been happening for a long time. And we're just seeing a modern manifestation of it. So that's that recent history. Oh, I forgot to start my timer. You just let me know when I'm in trouble. So recent history. So coworking was coined. It started in August of 2005. It was 10 years ago. But before that, there were people who were doing coworking before there was a word. And Center for Social Innovation is one of the awesome examples of it. Is Tanya here? Hey, wow, I saw you right there. Hi, Tanya, you're one of my idols. Thanks so much for being amazing. I'm so excited for your talk right after mine. I'm warming you guys up for time. Before coworking, there were people doing coworking, and even before that, right, we've had people gathering out of mutual self-interest. But then in August of 2005, this guy, Brad Newberg, who was working for himself, working from home, sick of being in his house by himself, came up with this idea of getting people together, and he called it coworking. And that's it. That was the first coworking space. It's in a wellness center in San Francisco called the Spiral Muse. And it was, he basically just went in there with this idea, talked to the folks that were there, and said, could I use your space in the daytime for people to come hang out and get online? And they said, sure. And so every day he went in there and set up the desks, and he had to put it all away because they had events in the evening. And so every morning he got up and set up his desk and sat there and worked and then put it away. And it was actually not very successful in the beginning, but but he did it, and people saw what he was doing. And some of the people really were into what he was doing because they saw something that they resonated with for themselves. And among those people were Tara Hunt, who you'll be hearing from later today. Is Tara here yet? I don't think so. Yeah, we'll be seeing her later. And Chris Messina, who went on to basically take the idea that Brad had. I'm going to skip Joey for now. And they got involved in some of the early co-working efforts in San Francisco that's succeeded that original effort. Brad basically said, hey, I'm not going to try to make a big thing out of this. If you want to take co-working and make it your own, go for it, run with it. And so people started things like the Hat Factory and the Google group, and they said, hey, if you want to do co-working wherever you are, come talk to us. Let's talk about what it can be. And so the co-working Google group was formed right around then. All with these sort of open source ideas in mind. This is San Francisco, 2005, 2006. Open source is really hot and sexy, and it hasn't gotten blown out of proportion yet. And so the whole idea was, let's make this open. Anybody, anywhere, if you want to take the word co-working, go for it. And so things like the co-working Google group. How many people are on the co-working Google group? Awesome. Okay, if you're not on it, and you're at all, you're here, so you're interested in co-working, you should definitely check it out. There's thousands of people all over the world every day talking about co-working. The co-working wiki, they started. And they said, so they started putting together information about what co-working spaces are like and all of these things. How many people familiar with the co-working wiki at all? Yeah? Okay. Did anyone discover coworking basically through the coworking wiki or the Google group first off? A few of us? Okay. So coworking wiki is really important because it has landing pages for every city in the world, right? So if you search coworking and the name of your city, odds are there's a wiki page there, and so it's an entry point for a lot of people for coworking. And it's managed by a bunch of people, so no one person owns it. And this is part of what has allowed coworking to become a global phenomenon, is because no one person owns it. Brad decided, I'm not going to try to own this thing. Other people are interested in it, they're coming to me, they like the idea, and he said, go. And those people took it and said, okay, well we're just going to give everyone whatever resources they need to be able to be a part of this movement. No one tells you that you have to buy a license to be co-working, right? And that's amazing. That's what's allowed all of us to use that word and be able to have conferences around it today. So Tara and Chris opened Citizen Space in 2006 after sort of these initial early spaces, and that was sort of the prototype for the modern co-working space that you see today, where you pay a membership and you have this sort of a structure, and it was the inspiration for a lot of other co-working spaces that followed. And so you're seeing, okay, it started in 2005, now it's starting to warm up in 2006, we have these resources. In 2007, it started to become apparent that as co-working was getting bigger, we were going to need to adopt some sense of sort of what we represent. And anybody can still use the word co-working, and there's no regulation saying exactly what it is. But as a community, collectively, in the Google group, we sort of discussed this and came up with a set of core values, which we believe generally represent what co-working is about. And that is community, openness, accessibility, collaboration, and sustainability. I don't have a slide for it, but it's fine, you can find it. And so essentially you could be co-working, you could call yourself co-working, but if you're really representing those 5 values, then you probably, the more that you're representing those values, then the more co-working you probably feel like. And so those core values helped us to kind of develop a sense of identity, which was important moving forward. September 1st, 2007 was a big day in my life. I moved to New York City, and I spent my first day living in New York City, going to Philly, because it was the grand opening of Indie Hall, which is a co-working space that has been a tremendous inspiration to me and to so many other folks for so many years. I met Alex Hillman, I met a bunch of other amazing people, and that was a big moment for all of us because Indie Hall's inspired a lot of us since then. And then fast forwarding to about 6-8 months later in 2008, there was this, so at South by Southwest, a lot of us were getting together, and a lot of co-working people were coming to South by at that time, and so we decided to have a meetup, and there was this really neat hotel in Austin where we all got together and had this little meetup, and it was about, I don't remember how many people were there. Who was there at that meetup? Alex, you were there, right? Liz? Okay. Do you remember how many people? 30 or 40? Yeah, 30. And it was just this like really cool little networking event, but it was the first time that people from really distant parts of the world got together and started talking, and we knew we were part of something. We knew we were part of something that was global and it was big. And subsequent to that, we started doing more substantial events at sort of juxtaposed with South by, and that ended up being the beginning of GCUC, which was originally just in Austin and is now global all over the world. Thank you, Liz, for helping to make this a global conference movement. Yeah, awesome. All right, yeah. And then later that year, a very important thing was invented, the co-working visa. So this is, again, a testament to the power of this as a decentralized movement. We had this notion that, well, a lot of us have co-working spaces and we're all independent businesses, but we want to be friendly, we want to help each other. But how do we make deals where we could share memberships without it becoming really, really complicated? And so the idea that came about in this discussion group was let's make a simple wiki page where you can just opt in. If you have a space and you want to share with the other spaces, you just add your space to this page, and then your members can share with the other spaces up to 3 times. And so it made this super really easy way for all of us to be able to say that we're working together and we're sharing memberships without any dollars having to change hands, which is super cool. So if you're running a co-working space, you're interested in getting on the co-working visa, just Google co-working visa and you'll find the links. And then in 2010, we're fast forwarding a little bit here because I don't have forever and it's a lot of history. Coworking.com, which was owned by somebody who wasn't really using it, they were in a position where someone wanted to buy it from them, and they contacted, I think they contacted Alex. Did they contact you directly? Yeah. And they basically said, well, we're going to sell this thing, and we don't want to sell it to them, so we'd rather sell it to you, but it's 10 grand, and we need it tomorrow. Or something, we need it soon. And so Alex led a fundraising campaign. We raised the money in a matter of hours, more than we needed, and purchased it. So now coworking.com and org are basically managed by a bunch of us, and that's great. So, oh yeah, and then in late 2011, we just invented coworking. They posted a blog post about how they started it 30 years ago, and I think they were excited, because people are getting into the shared office world, which is normally not very sexy, and so they figured, hey, we're coworking, we've been doing this for a while, but they're wrong. And I got into actually a little blog battle with their CEO, which was kind of fun. So coworking's getting hot now, right? In 2013, there were over 100,000 members of coworking spaces. It's becoming big, right? Thousands of spaces all over the world. And it's starting to become an industry. And this is where it's getting really interesting because I see it as a social movement. It's very important to me from that perspective, but it's also a business, and that's good too because it gives us a delivery mechanism. And so if we can use these businesses for the social cause, then we've got something, right? WeWork raised $355 million at the end of last year. They're valued at $10 billion now. And this is the last slide of my present history part because I think this brings us to an inflection point. WeWork has led sort of the perception from the public of coworking being an industry, and that's good in the sense that it's getting coworking out there. People are talking about it. People know what it is. But that brings us to today. Coworking is 10 years old and a month or so. But the history of coworking is really just getting started. I just talked about 10 years. Coworking is something that is going to a place where it's going to be something that has a shelf life that's far, far bigger than 10 years. And so what I'm thinking about, when I think about the history of coworking, well, I think, it hasn't happened yet. We're still in it. We're only just getting started. And what I really love not to see is when someone gets up on a stage 100 years, 90 years from now to talk about 100 years of coworking. It won't be me, probably. But somebody's going to talk about coworking 100 years from now, 90 years from now, whatever. And I don't want them to say this was a slightly better way to rent office space. Right?
Yeah.
Do you?
No.
Do you? No. Damn it. Okay, now here's why that's important. Because, I don't know about you guys, but I grew up with this perception that work, when I was a kid, I grew up with this notion that work was this necessary drudgery that you had to do because that's what people did. You grew up, you had fun in college, and then you got a job, and you hated your boss, you hated your commute, you hated your cubicle, you counted the minutes to lunch, to happy hour, to the weekend, to retirement, and that was just how it is. And I think that sucks. We spend a lot of our time working, and this is not the kind of relationship that the world should have with work. And a lot of us have that relationship with work. And I see in coworking and in the attached sort of shift that's happening away from that hierarchical employed model towards a network model, a chance for us to change our relationship with work as a society. But that's not going to happen on its own. And it's not going to happen if we're just renting space. So what I'm thinking about is, what will be the future? What will be the history of coworking? And the answer is, I'm going to skip these slides because they're wordy. What's the history of coworking 100 years from now? It's us. It's you. Right? The people in this room are the people who are making the future history of coworking and where it goes. And so we get to decide if this is a movement of people who are going to help change the world's relationship with work for the better, or if it's going to be a way of renting office space a little bit better. Right? We get to decide that. So, what's amazing about right now is that we are all in this room and we are all here. We've come at great expense, we've traveled, we've taken time away from our spaces and our work to be here for a reason. And the reason is for us to see if we can maybe learn how to help each other make this more of a movement, make this something that can help people improve their relationship with work for the better. And we're in a funny place right now because we kind of knew that the independent workforce was going to become a thing, that it's going to get bigger, that people are going to be working less and less in traditional jobs. But if the storyline gets to stick, that this new economy is about people renting out their time on Uber and renting out their homes in Airbnb, and that it's not a good thing, but it's a suffering thing, that's not good. We have a lot of new people who are coming into this world who can be thinking of this as an opportunity to share with each other in a good way, and to create, and to get paid to create, and to help their neighbors, and to get paid to help their neighbors, right? Like, we can have a better relationship with work, but that story is going to need some help. And I think coworking is the way that we're going to help that, because we are designed from the ground up to support this new workforce in a way that no one else is. In this completely natural, accidental, no one was in charge kind of way, we built a complete global infrastructure to support the new workforce. We could go out and say, hey, if you're working for yourself, or you're thinking of working for yourself, or you don't know what's going on because you thought you were going to get a job and now you have to figure it all out yourself. There's probably a place biking distance from where you live where there are people just like you who can help you. That's a story we can tell. That's a story our local governments can help us tell, right? If we can think of our spaces as more than just workspaces, but as centers for career development for the future workforce. That's the kind of story that I think we can take as sort of this global network of communities that are supporting this movement. And so that's the kind of thing that I want to see happening. We have this conference to talk about how that happens. We've got an unconference day tomorrow where we can pick the topics, we can decide what we talk about. And so I want us to take advantage of that. And I want us to just not be shy, because we're in a position to really change the world's relationship with work, and that's up to us to decide how that goes. I mentioned Open Coworking. It's a nonprofit. It's an organization I just sort of joined to help lead. We're looking for volunteers to help maintain these public resources, the wiki. We're developing a new map. Where's Oren? Oren's not here yet. Oren, you'll meet at some point, is developing a new map project. We're going to try to have all of these resources as best as we can, because nobody's getting paid to manage these resources, and when you have thousands of people updating them, it can get a little messy. So we want to have people doing that, and I want us really as an organization to help lead this charge and help make coworking more than just an office space rental thing. So that's something that I'm helping to make more real. We're looking for people to support us. We're looking for people to help us out. And so go to opencoworking.org, learn more about that. Come talk to me if you're interested. I'm also involved in the IndieCon Unconference, which is on Saturday. And we're working on a deal for you guys for that. So we might be able to get you guys in for a steeply discounted rate, but we'll get back to you on that. Check Twitter and a bunch of other things. Check my website, tonybacigalupo.com, about that. So that's, I think, all I have, except for one thing which is very important, which is that if you guys don't mind, I'm kind of into selfies, and if you think it would be all right, I'd like to take a picture of all of us right now to kick off the conference. Does that sound okay? Yeah. Okay, cool. I've got my lady's phone because she's recording this talk with my phone. And thanks, Amy. Okay, and here we go. Ready? All right, everybody smile. Don't blink. Oh no, I don't need the password. Okay.
Oh, it's 8:08.
All right. Okay, that's pretty good. Hey, how are we doing? Are we excited for Juicy or what? Are we excited for Juicy or what? Okay, Ashley, how do I do on time? Am I okay? All right, thanks everybody, and have a good conference.
Thank you, Tony. And I also must thank you for being the very first person, other than Liz, of course, who said yes when I asked for help to bring GCUC to Canada. I remember very clearly exactly 1 year ago today